Jim Ziegler, the Alpha Dog, and this is the Ziegler Zone. Today, Buffalo, New York, the home of the Buffalo Bills. Matt Lasher, director of West Herr Automotive. Hi, Matt.
Jim, you're hurting my feelings a little bit today. So it's a Monday, kind of a dark Monday morning here, Monday afternoon now, but in Buffalo as we recover from last night's antics.
Oh my God! Should have kicked that field goal.
Yeah, jeez.
I don't know why they went for it on fourth, but what the heck?
We like to listen. We like to torture ourselves. That's kind of how Buffalo fans, we've earned our stripes over the last 20 or 30 years.
If you get a chance out, Josh Allen's got to get rid of that mustache.
Listen, that's above my pay grade, Jim. I'm not allowed to consult him on his facial hair or his regular haircut.
I've been a fan of West Herr Automotive for many years. I have a lot of ties to Buffalo. I've done a lot of work in Buffalo. Tell me about the organization.
Yeah, the elevator pitch. So we're a 39 store group in Buffalo, Rochester, and Syracuse, New York, representing pretty much all the major brands. To give you some sense, we have 4 Ford stores, 5 Chevy stores, 4 Toyota stores, 3 out of the 4 Nissan stores in Buffalo. So we operate at a density that's pretty unique for our region. There's a lot of groups that are our size. We're a top 20 dealer group or something like that in the US, but all of our stores are densely populated in about 100-mile radius, give or take, with our one store in Syracuse being the furthest away. And we've really grown over the years. We have over 3,000 team members now. We sell over 60,000 cars a year. We service over 500,000. And so the scope of the operation is incredible, really. We've grown into collision and glass businesses as well. And it's a great organization to be a part of. So Scott Beeler's our president and CEO. He's really the chief driver of all this growth. I'd love to sit here and tell you today that it's because of all my great doings and whatnot. But if anybody that has met Scott Beeler, he is a unique person. He's really a unicorn in the industry. He's such a giving, generous person, not only in Western New York and the community, but just driven, trying to provide opportunities for employees, right? One of his philosophies of growth is really just to allow people to kind of graduate up through the organization. So so West Herr, I've been at West Herr 15 years. Prior to that, out of college, I worked at Nissan North America in sales and marketing roles. And in between, I played poker part-time online to pay my bills. And I sold t-shirts out of the trunk of my car for 2 years before I decided to get married and settle down. And
oh my gosh, that is a hell of a resume. Hey, listen, what drew me to you was a video you published on LinkedIn about digital retail. And it turns out you and I have some very similar views on digital retail. It's a great success and a great failure all at once. Tell me what that video was all about.
Well, yeah. So I think I was just the one you're talking about. I think I was driving into work and I was just thinking about digital retailing. So I just kind of put my phone in front of my face here and let it rip. But our journey with digital retailing goes back to maybe 2014 or 15. So at that time, Dealer.com, who subsequently got acquired by DealerTrack and then Cox, but they were really about trying to connect the digital dots to the in-store dots. That was sort of the philosophy that Raj and company, were sort of espousing. And at that time, I was an ambitious, digital sort of first marketing person. And I was like, that sounds like a pretty good plan to me. I'm in for that. I want to do that. So,
we all bought into it. Oh, we were there. I mean, we gave it the college try. We gave it the effort.
Well, and I'll say this.
It fell short.
Look, shout out to Rick Gibbs. So one of the founders of Dealer.com, he, I think, had it as close to a usable ecosystem as you could get before ultimately it sort of got defragmented into the Cox ecosystem. But, so our journey in 15, we put the digital retailing tool onto Wester.com and all of our child sites. And I think it was 16, about a year later, we were going through some tool expense reduction and just some budget controls. and we turned off all the tools. So we just removed digital retailing kind of cold. And what I learned in that exercise is here we had this thing on the sites for a year, and I was proud of it. And here we are shopping by payment and all of this and that. Not a single customer, not one customer said, "Where'd that thing go?" Now,
No, they didn't miss it, and it wasn't. You see, when digital retail became another thing right after the pandemic, when
yes.
all the vendors came out, we all of a sudden got Roadster, and we've got
Yep.
Upstart Digital, and we've got all these companies coming out of the woodwork. And we were going to try to be like Carvana. We were going to try to be like Tesla. We were going to totally transact on the internet, and customers didn't cooperate.
Well, if you fast forward to COVID, right? So through the boring part of our actual learnings, I've always been sort of a proponent of people first in our business. And I think what some of these digital retailing tools sort of miss is that they are trying to jump over the shark. They're trying to skip over the people process. And my archetype customer, I call her Grandma Sue. She lives in Hamburg, New York, and I always reference Grandma Sue. But Grandma Sue doesn't want to be a sales manager online. Okay, she doesn't really want to go through a 6 to 10 step process online. She wants to interact with the people that she's comfortable with and she knows and trusts and cares about. And, she wants to be given guidance and recommendations, and that's what she prefers. So digital retailing, I think, often tries to like jump over that and just provide the dealership or whoever with a deal gift wrapped in a box. And there's so many variables to contend with as it relates to actually transacting through an e-commerce solution as it relates to auto. Number one, I think, and I don't remember which order, Jim, I said in the video, so forgive me, I didn't write notes, but new cars, let's talk about new cars for a minute. So obviously we all know we've had inventory constraints over the last couple of years, but the listings of new cars online are largely inaccurate. There's probably a variance, depending on brand, of 10 to 30% or more of the cars that are listed online aren't actually available.
They're gone, or they never existed. Some of the vendors are putting up cars that never existed.
So, yeah, and they could be in transit, that they could already be spoken for. They could be pending some status, whatever. So there's a lot. So there's that wrinkle as it relates to the actual thing that you're trying to buy. Right. If you also think about used cars at Herr, we share inventory across the whole group. And so there's some logistics with that.
That's a lot of power.
Well, it is. It's a super powerful thing, but we have 490 salespeople at any given time that can check out a car from any of our 39 stores. So at any given time, a customer might be interested in a vehicle that's actually on a test drive with somebody else right now. Right. So this idea of like e-commerce, I'm buying this t-shirt or whatever. Well, the t-shirt manufacturer has a warehouse with like a number of t-shirts that are available of that size. And when they run out, it's no longer for sale. Right. And our tools aren't good enough yet to sort of recognize and sort of reconcile inventory discrepancies that happen daily, right? Our syndication feeds update every couple hours, and things are always changing. But so inventory issues was one thing that caught my attention. What's my trade worth is obviously an interesting variable. I think a lot of the data providers would say, well, you just can put a number on it. Maybe. But if you ask 20 different used car managers,
how many people would put a different number on that same vehicle?
That's right. If Jim appraises a car and Matt appraises the car, we might come up with slightly different answers.
I trust the pot-bellied old used car manager with the unlit cigar way sooner than I would do a V-Auto.
Well, and look, I mean, I think car dealerships need to recognize we're people businesses first and foremost. If we want to strip all the people out of it, well, what are we turning into? Well, just a direct to consumer sort of factory business, right? So like I, as a dealer, don't want to really advocate for the people being stripped out of the process. So I'm okay if a customer has to come in and we have to look at the car to validate, the appraisal number. I love ranges. I'm a big fan of trade pending's appraisal process, just to give the customer an idea of what their trade's worth, and let us see the car, because maybe it's in excellent shape and we can give you even more than the range suggests.
See, that's where you and I have so much agreement. I'm into ranges. I mean, you can't give the customer a direct to the penny number, because nobody describes their trade accurately.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Nobody.
look, different market conditions, different time, seasonality issues, and other things. So I think it's an artful thing, but it's a variable nonetheless, right? So like to have an e-commerce transaction, you got to get all the T's crossed and I's dotted and whatnot. And I don't think so those two variables, new inventory and trade, are major.
Matt,
Customer,
would you agree? Would
yeah,
you agree that most customers don't end up purchasing the car they transacted or tried to buy originally? They
totally. Yeah. I mean, we see it all the time. People come in on a Highlander and they leave in a Hummer or whatever, right? So, I mean, these things happen every day. People are illogical sometimes when it comes to the art of deciding which car they want to buy. That just is. It's not a logical 1+1=2. Sometimes 1+1=3, and you just got to roll with it, right? As a human
Matt,
being.
you've got 39 stores. Can you personally tell me all the models of all the cars?
No.
I can't. I'm in the industry for 49 years. I can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, I'm a little bit removed from the day-to-day selling now. When I was selling cars back a few years ago, I took a lot of pride in understanding make model comparisons and different things. And let me know all the small SUVs. Let me know all the third row options.
Me too. Me too.
But obviously, cars have gotten more complicated. There's EV options, there's plug-in hybrid options, there's all sorts of different configurations that I don't, with 39 stores, we have, I think, 28 OEM brands we represent. It's impossible. There's just too many, a couple hundred.
How many customers actually know the models of Cadillac when they're shopping? I mean, all the alphanumerics. I mean,
Yeah. You can get those diehard people that like know everything about the WRX or whatever, and that's cool. Like, that's great. We can roll with them. Sometimes the consumer's more informed than we are, and that's totally okay, right? I think we can embrace that. But so this human variable component, I think, is an interesting piece that I don't think digital retailing partners have done enough on to connect the people at the dealership to the people sort of browsing from home.
I have had a demo on just about every one of the digital retailers, from Frickin' Tech to Darwin to Prodigy.
Alex Snyder, shout out to him. I like Alex. Alex is a good dude.
Auto FI. I've seen all the demos, and one thing we found out, and they will admit, that the customers will go to a certain point and not transact.
Yeah.
They still come physically into the stores. Is that your experience?
So I had a national digital retailing company tell me that 90% of the customers that interact with their tool across the whole country do not change the defaulted credit score in the digital retailing experience. Now, why is that? Well, I have some theory. I think one is customers don't want to intentionally show themselves a higher payment online. Maybe they're hoping they can slide through the cracks, or maybe they're like, oh, okay, whatever, we're in the ballpark. Like, we'll see, but it's interesting, right? The psychology of that. Well, why wouldn't they want to see what a more accurate rate looks like? Well, because their payment's going to go up, and it's going to
wait a second. I've been to Buffalo many, many times. And one thing I found out is like all markets, we have credit challenged customers.
Yep.
No doubt. Right now, 40% of customers have a credit score below 600. I mean, and that's rising. We have record delinquencies. Yeah. We've got record repossessions since 2008. So all of a sudden, I found out years ago when digital retailing first came about, that a lot of the people trying to go online and purchase their cars were credit challenged people trying to trick the computer.
Well, and you see that, right? So you see that today. That's what's happened. Not everybody has perfect credit. So, ultimately, I think we should be human and be empathetic and be aware. And as dealerships who need to serve the customer base, we should be educated on how to handle those types of scenarios, as well as normalizing it. So a stat, you said 60 or 40%. There's some stat
under 600.
Yeah, similar stat I've seen is a little higher, 680 and less is 40%. But at the end of the day, that's a huge pocket of customers. But I've been saying lately, it's not even just your credit score. There's people with perfect credit that are now maxing out their credit cards. There's people with perfect credit that now have a huge negative equity situation that they have to confront because they bought the car 2 years ago at an inflated price. They have customers that have great credit, but their children are going off to college, and we all know how expensive college is, right? So there's budget constraints with majority of consumers. Not everybody is just like cash rich, solo customer, pay whatever, like it's just not like that. People have budgets.
We've been rolling their negative equity into the next loan for how many years? 84 months. That's not a transaction. That's a wedding.
I am a little bit worried about rising term lengths. I think that has been a mechanism by which some of the F&I profits have come, and I think that's a challenging thing for consumers. But I don't know exactly how to unwind some of that. Buffalo is a really big historically leasing kind of town. We've had new leasing penetration north of 70% in some brands. So we've gotten away from that in COVID and industry, short supply issues. So I think leasing might come back in to help bridge the gap.
I'm teaching a lot of leasing right now. A lot of word tracks. A lot of people are remembering that that's the better way to go when we try to get a cycle with the customer and get them out of these cars.
But the OEMs have to support those things, and there has to be rebates and residual, support to make the payment reasonable and affordable. And with the price of all cars kind of going up, I think you mentioned it. The price of our used car inventory, our average cost of inventory was $20,000 3.5 years ago. Now it's about 30,000 on the used car side, and we have 3,000 cars in stock. So the price of cars has gone up basically 30% or so. Right. And now we're not going to sell from an empty shelf. So we have cars. But now what we're starting to run into is, as lenders have gotten a little more constricted, a little more conservative in certain areas. Obviously, the first part of this year was atrocious for banks. So a lot of folks, and now their portfolios aren't performing very well. So there's a lot of interesting
a lot of lenders are backing out of the market, and especially the subprime lenders. I see Wells Fargo has tightened up. A lot of them have really tightened up or gotten out of the market. Their lending criteria are, you were mentioning the price of cars. I had 9 Escalades between 2000 and 2010, 9 of them. And the last one I bought in 2010 was $60,000 with every piece of equipment. I had the entire wrapper package on that car.
120 now or so.
Exactly. Yeah. Inflation hasn't gone up 100%.
No, it's gotten more expensive to buy cars. But I think on the subprime side, what dealers need to know is what I've learned as a desk manager. I didn't always know how to put the deals together the right way or whatever. If I sell the wrong car, I might be in for a really high bank fee because the bank's trying to offset the risk. There's too much, the loan to value is too high, whatever. So the bank fee is really high, and now that's bad for the customer. But if a dealership can be proactive and can guide vehicle selection based on what the customer can afford responsibly, they can offset those fees. They can often get deals bought with lenders that are even being conservative today, but we can lower the fee. So that's a better thing for the customer, because when they trade it back in, they won't have as much negative equity, right? It won't be as bad next time. So we can work with our customers as dealers as long as we understand the game that's happening, and we have to understand the skills that we need to sort of address it.
What process do you have? A uniform process with all 39 stores, or how are you doing that?
Yeah, so I mean, we do have a 10-step sort of road to the sale. That's sort of, but what's interesting, it's a sort of a flexible pieces to the puzzle. Every store has its own softball team like attitude. Western definitely believes in the people. So the leader of the store is sort of setting the cultural tone and sort of the expectations. And so some are more rigid than others, and some have different expectations. But broadly speaking, I would just say the Western philosophy is try to be pretty consistent. We try to be transparent. When we screw up, because inevitably we will, we try to make people better than even. So we got to acknowledge our mistake, and we got to make them better than even, right? And that's really just a simple, generalized business philosophy.
I've always called that, when the line breaks down and the blitz is coming, the manager can scramble.
There you go. You gotta have some flexibility, right? And so I think, to tie where we started with this sort of digital retailing process, I'm really proud of the people that work at Western. I'm really proud of the efforts that they put in every single day. And anybody that's sold a car knows it's not a linear process. It's not okay, I'll take this one process. Now, yes, sometimes those deals happen, but I can't tell you the amount of cars I've sold with 50 different phone calls back and forth, or text messages or emails traded back and forth, or I changed my mind, or let me check with my spouse, or you know what, we decided let's go with this package instead of this one. Like things happen. And so I'm really proud of the people that work at Westher day in and day out. You know, it's their commitment and their dedication to the customer that makes us successful ultimately. And so I never want to lose sight of that, regardless of what tools I might try to be bringing into the Westher ecosystem. It's always about the people, right? Always, forever.
The road to the sale didn't die. We just inserted technology into it.
That's right. That's right. But, you know, and it's in bits and pieces. We're no different than most dealer groups. We have a lot of fragmented technology. A lot of the stuff doesn't work well together. You know, we have these separate silos of data, from CRMs to service schedulers to DMS to website insights and other things. So we have all this disparate data. And I know, you know, a lot of people talk about CDPs and other things like that. And I think ultimately that might get us to a good place. I think we have a lot as an industry, a lot of maturing to do to have all of these bits and pieces work together a little better before it can really be realized.
Well, let me ask you, how much are you relying on outside vendors to generate business? How much of that are you digitally doing yourself?
Well, look, we're proud of our brand, right? And so because of the density by which we operate, Scott Beeler is, you know, incredible and creates tremendous goodwill in the community just through donations to Children's Hospital and cancer hospitals. And
I've seen that. I've seen that. That is incredible.
Right.
You guys are involved in every charity in the world, and you really wholeheartedly dive into it.
But he's recently started to change how he talks about it. And it's no longer us just giving. We're considering it re-giving. So the community has been remarkably supportive of us over the last 73 years we've been in business. And so now we just look at it as an obligation and a responsibility that Westher has to re-give that support back to the community in however way we can, right? And so we're doing all sorts of different things. But one thing that we did do unique recently in the last 6 weeks, we gave away Josh Allen's truck or $100,000. So we allowed the community to enter for free. We got over 500,000 entries to Westher.com. They could enter every day for 6 weeks. And our website traffic went up a sustained 300% over the 6-week period, which was remarkable. But what a fun thing to do. Give away Josh Allen's truck or $100,000. Now
the Bills are like gods in that community.
Yes. Now it was great. So the winner was a diehard Bills fan and diehard Josh Allen fan. Really tough choice. They ended up going with the money because, hey, life is expensive. They got kids that are going to go to college. They could make a big, meaningful impact in their mortgage. However, they're going to use that money. But you know, so ultimately they took the cash, which I wasn't surprised about. But it was a really, really fun contest for us to like generate awareness and just, you know, our appreciation for the community. So I would just say, you know, Jim, it's been a long journey at Westher. 73 years is not anything to take for granted. And we just try to do things right each and every day, right? And that is a slow, honest path towards getting more business each and every day. That repeat and referral business doesn't happen because we asked for it. It happened because we did something well. We executed well. And when we screwed up, that might sometimes be the best opportunity to turn things around, right? Because you can surprise them by your willingness to care and adapt and listen and hear and, you know, all of that. So I would just say we've had a slow and steady, but no doubt Scott Beeler, he's put his foot on the gas, and we've acquired 11 stores, I think, in the last 2.5 years. So that's 30% or so of our network we've grown through acquisition.
You dominate Western New York. Absolutely.
Well, in Buffalo, for sure. We got some work to do in Rochester, and in Syracuse, we're just one store, right? But in Buffalo, we sell about 40% of the new vehicles in the Western New York area.
Did you acquire some of the Fusillo stores?
I think, well, the Matthews Automotive Group, Rob Matthews, if you see this, he bought some of the Fusillo stores in Grand Island, and I think over in Utica area, I think. But we didn't buy any of the Fusillo stores, I don't think. But rest in peace, Mr. Fusillo Sr., who passed away a few years ago. I know his son
He was a very good friend of mine, very good friend of mine. I trained him when he was a wholesaler.
You know, talk about a marketer, right? Like his style's a little different than Westher's, but he definitely was able to make noise. That Kia store in Florida really cranked out. And like, you know, he was able to do it. You know, the cruise, like the Fusillo cruise thing and stuff. So, you know, we got
500 cars in one day. I mean, I met Fusillo Lynn Hickey Dodge when I was working with those guys back in the '80s, and he was in training then as a wholesaler. Didn't even have a franchise yet.
But if anything, I think what that goes to show, obviously, he was a talented marketer. I think there's a lot of different ways. I'm a big proponent of speaking your truth and finding your authentic conversation. So I don't think you can force anything. I think you should be who you are, right? So
But
ultimately,
similarly, West Herr, and I've followed you guys for a long time. You are a promotion machine.
well,
As opposed to advertising.
yeah, I mean, look, ultimately, I think we do put, sales and service offers out there, and we do lease. The last couple of years have been unique. We've been a little more on the branding side than maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where it was a lot of lease specials and incentive conversations and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think ultimately our job as marketers is try to connect relevant pieces of information to consumers that are in the right place, in the right mind, and the right ability to transact
at the zero moment.
That's right. Yeah, personalized, timely, and relevant is something I talk a lot about, and we try to find those pockets. But this is a people game ultimately, and we have to execute day in and day out. If you listen to recorded phone calls at West Herr, and I listen to them periodically, I can tell you that we have lots of room to improve. We're not perfect, right? And I think
not if you're listening to recorded calls, you're not. But you're better than most. But still, in all, there's a lot of room for improvement. Every dealership in the world.
Yeah, it just goes to show it's daily execution and sort of that discipline to getting better. I don't care if you're a 30-store group or a one store, in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't really matter. You have unlimited opportunity to do better. You could have said hello to that person in the service lane. You could have called that customer back that has some, mileage anxiety in their lease. You could call that person that has challenged credit that you weren't able to get done yesterday with a different idea. There's so many opportunities to just try, right? And try to add value in the process.
I have a Zieglerism that I've said for 30 years. In the car business, we don't have a what problem. We have a when problem. And we don't have a training problem. We have a doing problem.
Mm-hmm. Listen, I believe in that for sure. We're all accountable to our own actions, right? And I can't make anybody do anything. I can try, that might work for a little while. You got to want it. We're proud of the fact that we hire a lot of people with empathy naturally. They care about people. They care about trying to do the right thing. And that's something that we just try to ingrain here in our culture at West Herr. All the directors on our company, are really focused on people. So, and it's obviously not just, me. We got Beth Hollis, our VP of variable. We got Jay Galligan, our VP of fixed. We have a variable director team and a fixed ops director team under that. So everybody's focused on, do we have the right people in the right chairs right now, right? Or do they need help, or are they going through something in their life that we should maybe be accommodating to? Divorces, health issues, money issues, unexpected, family tragedies and things. I mean, there's all sorts of, in the people business, you got to care about your people. You got to know what's going on with them, and they're not all going to be able to sprint all the time. Sometimes you got to be like, look, Jim's a performer, but we're going to give him a little break at the moment because he's going through a rocky situation at home. Maybe you have an extra cup of coffee.
I've seen so many dealers that don't understand that. Amazing. I got a question on the screen right now.
What's up, Dario? So are we still pushing marketing main group website versus child site? Yep. So we have 40 websites. Westher.com is the bulk of the traffic, about 50% of the total website traffic.
Westher.com.
The rest of the traffic is really generated by forced co-op spends, digital spends, and things of that nature. So the other 50% is all the child sites. If I had my choice, it would all be Westher.com. One little trick we do as it relates to used car advertising, we only promote used cars on Westher.com. So it allows us a centralized place, so we're not competing internally.
The manufacturers aren't controlling your used cars.
That's right. That's right. So, and on the new car side, look, we have the privilege of selling their vehicles, so we have to abide by the rules that they put in front of us at times, and so that's okay. So
that's another discussion for another time.
But I would say this. So Westher is able to have the group site thing be much more effective than some groups because we are densely populated in one market. So if we were like scattered across the country and we had 3 stores in New York and 4 in California or whatever, Western.com wouldn't mean the same thing, because we have all of our cars all in one place that customers can actually transact on. So there's like this benefit there. So I would just say for some groups, a group site strategy might not be the right one. So you kind of have to, like, it depends on the situation for an auto group, right? So, but if you're a regionally dense one, I think a group site is the way to go for
Now,
sure.
you said that your sales representatives have access to all the used cars in the system.
That's right. Yeah, and we have we use Draver as a vehicle logistics system. It's kind of like Uber for dealer trade drivers, to help shuffle cars around our network. But yeah, we have a sign out system where salespeople can check out a car and show it to somebody. And we've worked out the monetary logistics between sister stores selling cars from each other. So we've been doing it a long time, and it's something that's really definitely a strength of ours.
How about the concept of a BDC versus the salesperson taking the direct internet lead?
So yeah, we have sales and service BDCs. So testament, shout out to them. They do a great job. I will say though, I think some of the BDC structure was created out of a legacy situation. I'll describe this to you. We used to have a custom CRM that was not OEM approved. So we had to use a different ILM, Internet Lead Management tool, to process the internet leads. That was like 17 years ago. Okay. So that created a centralized team that would use the ILM, because
that was way before most dealers got involved.
It was, but so we had this sort of legacy system. Now, I think there's pros and cons to BDCs. I think what we are trying to work on is connecting the BDC to the store a little more proactively, connecting the appointment to an in-store manager often, just making those real-time connections quicker and more seamless. But yeah, so we're currently a BDC environment, and they do a great job for us.
So did they hand that off to the sales manager? How's that process?
Typically they're asked to, the customer's directed to ask for the manager on duty, and then the managers are already prepared with the incoming internet appointments for the day, and they kind of know. Usually we do some pre-work of get the car staged or whatever. So
the car staged, the manager's selected the representative, and everything's ready.
But for all the talk of internet and whatever, like digital metrics, leads, all of that, CRM only labels maybe 20% of our leads as some digital source. The rest of them are just like walk-ins.
They walk in, don't they? That is amazing. They research on the internet. They don't tell you that they exist. They just walk in with all this information that they got off your site.
That's right. So, and one of the things top of mind for me now is I want to figure out how to better put our people on the website. So I think the website's pretty anonymous still, even Western.com, we're not doing a great job of connecting our 3,000 people to the 30,000 people.
There's where I'm trying to pioneer again. I pioneered video in the car business. I'll take full credit. I'm talking 2003. I was talking a digital dealer, and I was holding a flip camera on this. If you remember the flip.
Those are good. Those cams are good.
Oh, and I was holding the flip camera, and nobody in the room knew what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I was pioneering video, and then I discovered Elise Kephart, and I brought her into the industry, and it was amazing that I don't understand why we don't have video communication on the website, like a Zoom broadcast, like we're doing right now.
Well, I think some of the chat providers are trying to get a little more ingrained in that space. That's interesting, though. I think a lot of chat dealerships who have online chat have sort of delegated it out to managed services. So like you have this outside company managing the chat for you. Whereas that might be the opportunity for what you're talking about, almost real-time communication. Like, hey, Jim's shopping from home and Matt Lasher's
while they're still on the website, would you like to speak to a representative?
Yeah, like, hey, talk to Matt. He's standing in the showroom at the car you're interested in, whatever. It's like, so I definitely think there's the chat companies are trying to connect some of those dots, but it's not easy, and changing behavior is challenging. And I think, the dealership world, I think every vendor that's listening should remind themselves, car dealers have had the best, most profitable years they've ever had over the last 3 years, I guess, right? 3-4 years. When that's the reality, really abrupt, abrasive change is not going to be the norm, because why would you do that to yourself? things have been going good. It got 4x profit, bottom line's good. Like pain is what can create some of that innovation. So when the profit margins start to fall back to maybe even like 18 levels or maybe hopefully they don't go back that far, but let's say they come down 50%.
Oh, we've normalized. We have normalized, and it's not a turkey shoot like it was 1 year ago, where
But still,
you could demand 5,000 over sticker, 10,000 over sticker.
I will say West Herr was proud. We never sold a single new car over MSRP.
I'm so pleased to hear that.
But that was the minority, not the rule, right? We did have to make one adjustment during COVID where we couldn't sell cars to people outside of our market area because, New York City or wherever, like people, they were like, oh, well, West Herr's selling them cheaper. We were just selling them at MSRP. We were honoring our relationship with the manufacturer. We ended up having scenarios where we had used G-Wagons, say $100,000 over the price of a new one. But that was just the market dynamics. If you wanted to wait 5 years for a G-Wagon, you could, or you could buy the one that I just bought from a customer yesterday. You just have to pay the premium, and many people made that choice.
A lot of people did. I think that was one of the biggest mistakes that we as retailers made in the inventory shortage, the chip shortage. We started jacking up the prices on these vehicles, and now we're paying for it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the life cycle. I do think it's going to take a couple years to really fully flesh out all of that. Right, cars are getting older. The average age of a car on the road is like 12 and a half, 13 years, something like that. And, ultimately it's going to take another buying cycle. So another 3 to 4 years probably to fully feel the impact of COVID and pricing and affordability constraints and all of that stuff that we talk about.
I'm in the industry, and I personally have bought a new car every year, every other year, sometimes 2 a year. My wife and I, I've had.
Well, look at those rings you got on, Jim. Look at those rings you got. I mean, come on.
Life is good for $100,000 on your left hand. What can you do? No, but seriously, I was buying Escalades and Corvettes. I had 7 Corvettes and 9 Escalades in the decade. But now I'm driving a Lincoln Aviator, and truthfully, I'm on a lease. I think I'm going to buy it at the end of the lease. I think I'm going to continue ownership because I'm seeing that as a trend that a lot of consumers are doing.
I could speak to during COVID, there was a lot of interesting wrinkles with lease equity and stuff, and it made a lot of sense for you to buy your lease at the end. I bought 2 myself. But I think it's model by model. I think if you're in an EV right now, I probably wouldn't be looking at leasing and then buying it at the end. You're probably going to turn that thing back in. But we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, it's not that I can't afford it. It's just I can't see paying $60,000 more for the same vehicle I'm driving, basically with few changes.
That's right. Listen, and it's not easy to be in the car game. I think people point fingers at the OEMs like, oh, there's a piece of cake. The supply chains that they got to plan and think about. This is a complicated business. It's a global manufacturing, system. There's hundreds and thousands of people involved in product planning and guessing what the future will look like.
Where I'm taking you on this thing is the one word I wanted to get into this conversation: affordability.
Yes, sir.
Affordability, I believe, is the major issue in the car business today. And manufacturers aren't building affordable cars. They're building the top of the line, every conceivable accessory. They want a subscription accessories. Quit it.
Well, I did just see Chevrolet has pivoted their message. They've moved a little away from EVs. I saw a regional message. It was a Trax, a Colorado, and I'm forgetting the third car now, but it was 3 cars, and they were talking about these are affordable cars. They were sub $30,000 new car.
Equinox.
Option. Yeah, Equinox must have been, right? So, but Trax for $21,000 is, still fighting the good fight of affordability, I would say. But it's not easy because costs, people, look at these union contracts and all that stuff. People need to get paid. Cost of living is going, it's this web. We're all connected at the end of the day. Right. But I think there is a growing sort of haves and have-nots buckets. And I think the have-nots are getting squeezed, right? Like the middle class is getting squeezed. The people at the most vulnerable level of the economic pyramid are getting squeezed. And so what they're going to be able to get approved on, how much extra cash they're going to be able to come up with, the types of payments they're going to be able to afford to make, is going to continue to be a challenge in our industry. There's, it's just going to actually grow as a problem over the next several years, I think, personally.
Well, actually, okay. Now, the manufacturers, of course, are pushing EVs, and we've seen a lot of articles recently that the public is resisting. What are you experiencing?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, I think there's just not been the consumer demand in Western New York for the amount of product or emphasis on EVs. I think there's infrastructure issues that have been widely talked about. I think there's battery long-term recycling and whatever issues. There's the environmental impact for how many acres of land it requires to farm a lithium ion battery or whatever. So there's a lot of interesting variables there.
You're not looking for a whole bunch of additional lightnings to be shipped in.
We're not. I mean, I'll keep the brand nameless, but we actually did buy 5 EVs from one OEM back because they wouldn't do it for the customer. We did it. So we paid the expense to buy the customer out of their EV just because we want to keep them as a customer. But the reason for that is, the electrical problem and just computer things, the cars just like shutting off, and so I think it's still early, but here's what I do think. When EVs are cheaper than ICE vehicles as a whole, not just the federally subsidized 7,500 thing, like when they're just genuinely cheaper, and I do think that they'll grow in penetration. I don't suspect that 100% EV vehicles will be the majority of the market share, maybe ever.
I don't see that. I see that it's going to level out at a percentage.
Yeah.
Some people say 15, some say 20, some say 10. I'm not going to predict that, but it's going to be a percentage.
But the manufacturers that are like kind of dabbling in all, I think Toyota deserves all the credit for being, open to all the solutions, but definitely bullish on hybrid. And I do think hybrid is like the next rung on the ladder.
I'm bullish on hybrid because I'm seeing the consumers are bullish on it.
Yeah. And, interesting little thing I've been hearing about plug-in hybrids in particular. Consumers largely don't plug their cars in.
No.
So they have plug-in hybrids, but they just fill them up at the pump,
Okay. Let's see. I got another comment here. Stephanie Cristanello. Jim, you're right about this. The gentleman is wrong. Oh, she's saying you're wrong. Okay.
At least she called me a gentleman or Steven.
Okay.
Let's see. What are we talking about? Infrastructure for Ford and every other car. So the infrastructure, I was just pointing out that there's infrastructure problems related to EV. I don't know if maybe I didn't say it very clearly. We do, by the way, as a dealership group, have lots of clear charge point chargers installed, and we have all sorts of options for you to plug in your car at the dealership. But I agree. And in Western New York, by the way, Tesla hasn't figured out the infrastructure thing either. No disrespect to Tesla. There's a gigafactory right down the street, which is an impressive facility, but they haven't figured out the infrastructure for regular consumers either.
Okay. She's argumentative on the sidebar. I'm gonna
Hey, that's great. That's the best part about, being in our country and being able to sort of have differing opinions. And I think, obviously if Steven is I'm sure he has maybe a unique perspective on EV and is more bullish than me. All that I can speak to is just the customers that we're interacting with at West Herr each and every day. And
I misread the name. That's Steven. I was saying she, not Steven. Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Oh God, what have we not talked about?
I don't know. I mean, ultimately, look, I think if I would just say anything to your listeners would be, it's a people game. This is a people business. It's a remarkable gift and a remarkable challenge. Anybody that manages a team of more than a couple people knows that, people are complicated creatures, and there's a lot that goes into that. But the car business is a people business, and I think that's where we keep our feet rooted in that truth, and we're trying to do the best we can by the people that work at West Herr, and we're trying to do the best we can for the people that need our services, both sales and service, and just being entirely grateful for Team West Herr.
Well, the most important thing we could talk about is they are so battered and so beat up right now. Will the Bills make the playoffs?
So I saw some stat, 50% chance now that they lost to the Bengals. The road to the playoffs is not looking real good. But I'm rooting for my guy Josh Allen and Deion Dawkins and the rest of the guys there on the team. So I hope they can pull it out.
Yeah, I was watching the game last night. Ended at like 11:30, 11:40. I was still up watching it. I was rooting for the Bills, and what the heck. Well, listen, I really
Jim, last thing,
appreciate.
I just want to give Scott Beeler, he's our president and CEO, a little kudos. He's been nominated as one of 49 dealers for the Ally Dealer of the Year award. And so that's pretty exclusive company out of the 20,000 franchise dealers or however many there are in the country. So we're really proud of him.
Hold him in the highest regard. The highest regard. Yeah,
So I guess
absolutely.
we'll find out who wins at NADA here in 24 here in first week of February next year.
Where is it this year?
Vegas, I think. Yeah.
Oh, well, I am so sick of going to Vegas. I wish they'd choose another city, for heaven's sake.
Listen,
Well,
I was in
listen,
Vegas. I was in Vegas for an auto finance summit last week, and the Sphere is cool. So if anybody wants to go to the Sphere, it's a great place to be. Very interesting experience. IMAX on steroids, 18,000 seat thing. I didn't see you two. We just saw the postcard from Earth, but yeah, the rest of Vegas I could skip, but that was pretty cool.
Oh, I got to tell you, I've been to Vegas 100 times, easily 100 times. You know, I'd rather they opened up some of the other markets again. Anyway, Steven's going nuts on the sidebar.
Yeah,
there.
Steven and I, Steven is not enjoying what I'm having to say today, but that's okay. It's a great
Listen, Matt Lasher, director of Herr Automotive, Buffalo, New York. Thanks for being on with me today.
Jim, always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I wish you well, man. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Wave goodbye.